Alrighty, welcome back to Cameron Reads Comics. I'm Cameron. I just read comics. I love them. And on today's episode, I have one of my favorite creators in the entire industry, Peter Krause. Hello, Peter. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for the kind words.
Oh, this is a dream come true, especially because it just goes to show we were actually just talking that you should tell your creators on Twitter that you love them because, if they're receptive, you can have them on your podcast. We were just talking the same thing happened when I had Mark Russell on I think I told him like, it must've been Snagglepuss or something. I was like, I think your Snagglepuss run is like one of the single best series to ever come out and so underrated. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. And obviously then I was like, okay, I plugged myself. And so I did the same for Peter, and thank you so much for coming on.
Well, I do appreciate that. And it is good to hear it because, we work in our little bubbles and sure we get some, response either at shows or social media, but it's nice to know that, what we're doing has an effect on people.
It really does. And like, I don't know, I'm biased towards you too, because you've also worked with now two of my favorite writers, but we'll get into that. First and foremost, actually, I want to talk about your experience in the industry. You've been in the industry a long time, and so you're a very seasoned artist. What was your first project in the comic book industry?
Oh my gosh. Well, we had a group of guys here in Minneapolis. Then during the 80s, we did a black and white self-published book called Entropy Tales, and we did a spin-off from that called Night Wolf, which was a superhero character that I created. So that was, way back when, during the black and white boom. Did a little bit of work for Slave Labor Graphics, and then got a bonus book tryout with DC. It was a program where up-and-coming creators could get a chance to actually have something published as an insert in some of the books. So that was inserted in a Bronze Tiger story that got inserted into Suicide Squad.
Oh, so, yes.
Yeah. So that was, the initial stuff. And did some work for First Comics when that was around, and eventually all that stuff led to working for DC for about 10 years, starting with Star Trek Next Generation when DC had that license.
Oh wow, I never even knew DC had that license.
Yeah, and in the early 90s, that was my first regular DC gig. So starting I think in about like 91.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's and then it was, from there doing a few other projects for DC. Metropolis Special Crimes Unit was a miniseries written by Cindy Goff.
Yeah.
And then, we're going to talk about Power Shazam.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a lot of fun. And did that for, close to 4 years.
Yeah, that's a crazy run. Actually, Metropolis SCU, I'm a huge Gotham Central fan, obviously, and I didn't even realize a Metropolis book like that had come out, and so I'm actually really excited to go pick that up, especially for your art.
Yeah, well, it definitely was a time where the art was changing a little bit. We won at the time these things weren't huge, but we won a GLAAD award for that.
Oh wow!
It really does center on Maggie Sawyer.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Cindy, who went on to work in other industries, she was a fantastic writer, and it was a really, really great story.
I'm a huge Maggie Sawyer, Dan Turpin fan, so I'd gladly.
Well,
exactly.
You got to go look for those back issues.
Oh no, I'm very lucky to I'm a DC Universe Infinite subscriber, so I can travel. I travel with my iPad. I'll pick them up. I'll totally read them. That's how I'm going through right now. Ron Mars's Green Lantern. This all the old Kyle Rayner stuff, because I actually interviewed Ron too. He's a great guy.
Ron's a good friend. Ron's a good friend of mine. I'm sure he appreciated the kind words and the support. He's in my fantasy football league. So.
Oh, that's great. Oh, how'd that pan out? Or is it Super Bowl's next weekend? So
Yeah. Well, we have a fantasy football league that's 12 guys, scattered over the country, and it's all comic book professionals or their kids.
oh,
So we've
that's
got
awesome.
Andy Parks, Phil Hester, Ron Mars, Dan
Oh.
Jurgens is our commissioner.
Oh my gosh, those are all Midwestern guys. That's all because I went to school at University of Northern Iowa, and so
Okay.
I ended up going to
I won't
Galaxy.
hold that against you.
Oh, hey, let's not be
I'm
like
a
that.
gopher. So
No, I went to GalaxyCon in Minneapolis, I think 2019.
Okay.
And I saw Doug Monkey, I saw
Yeah.
Dan Jurgens,
Yeah.
and then where I went to school is right by where Phil Hester lived, because he would come
Okay.
at the comic shop. He'd do signings at the comic shop I worked at all the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what got me in the door, is they had a Green Arrow sketch on the wall. I was like, oh my gosh, Phil Hester. So that's awesome. I love to hear that you guys are like doing that. I'm friends with Lee Luffridge, who does
Okay.
he's obviously colorist, and
A really good colorist, by the way. I
amazing.
really like Lee's stuff a lot.
She's I met him at a car meetup, and so the way you're telling me there's a fantasy football league, there's also obviously a car community within the comics industry. I love that. I love seeing your guys' other hobbies, because I'm sure you have so much more to your life than obviously what I'm drooling over, right?
Well, I hope we have other things that they're going on. So.
I remember Donnie Cates said something a long time ago, and he said, I posted a photo on my wedding day, and people in the comments were asking me about Hulk questions. And I'm like, I just never want to be that guy. Okay, so were you a child into comics, or was it the work itself that brought you to that front?
You mean as far as when I was a kid, was I a comic book fan?
Yeah, were you a comic book kid? Because I feel like some people just kind of end up in the industry that way.
The industry, sure. Really beginning, like I would say, I was about third grade. I ended up making very good friends with two other of my classmates that were just huge into comics, huge into drawing, and it was kind of I guess the ideal type of thing where you had the corner drugstore, you bought the comics, we'd go to each other's house, we'd trade comics, we'd draw. So yes, I was totally into comics. Probably the first comic that I really got excited about was World's Finest.
Oh wow!
Just because, wow, you get Superman and Batman, every month together. What could be better than that?
Absolutely.
I ended up, when I started buying some Marvel comics, Daredevil ended up being my, favorite character, and I was, lucky enough to draw a couple Daredevil stories. So yes, good friends, drawing, trading comic books. I have very fond memories of that, and definitely provided the background for what I'm doing now.
That's so awesome, because and now that was a book I found out that you did. I researched your body catalog of work, because you never know also like what who you're talking to has worked on. And so you and Mark Waid, Mark Waid's my favorite writer in the entire industry. And so I have a lot of Irredeemable questions, and even the collaborative process, but
Mark is a very, very talented guy.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. But okay, let's start with Power of Shazam. What I've read most recently, Jerry Ordway, industry titan. What was that collaborative process like? Because he had, set the stage in the graphic novel that he had done, and then you picked up on the ongoing. What was that like to walk into that project?
Well, first of all, Jerry's also very Midwest. I mean, I believe he grew up in the Milwaukee area, if I'm not mistaken. So, working with Jerry, always very, very supportive. But getting that assignment was interesting, because at the same time that was up for grabs, I was also being offered Star Wars series. Dark Horse had the license at the time, and an X-Wing, I don't know if it was an ongoing or a mini. It's
No.
been, a few years. Mike Waringo was originally supposed to draw Power of Shazam, and that would have been fantastic.
Of course.
But he ended up taking a different assignment.
Mm.
So I can remember the conversation with Mike Carlin, and he was kind of hemming and hawing about giving me the job. And I finally said, okay, well, look, I've got another offer on the table. Let's, if you want to offer me the job, I will take the job.
Yeah.
And he did. But working with Jerry was wonderful. He's, again, very supportive. It was, Captain Marvel or Shazam,
Yeah.
want to describe it, it's one of the icons. It's, I thought that if I didn't do anything else in comics after that, I could always hang my hat on the fact that I, drawn Captain Marvel. It was fun. We had a great time being, honoring the past.
Yeah.
But, putting our own twist on it. It was, it was great fun. And then when we needed to have, fill-ins, as we did along the way, there was the guys that were heroes of mine growing up. Gil Kane, Kurt Swan. They, did some of the fill-in issues.
Oh, no way!
Mike Manley doing the inks for the first half of my run, and then it was Dick Giordano, and Dick was always very, very supportive of my work. Just a sweetheart. So
that's cool.
We had a lot of talents. We had a lot of talent surrounding us.
Yeah, and I want you to know too that, like, if you don't hear this, let me be the one to say it. I think Jerry Ordway gets a lot of credit for that run, and obviously rightfully so.
Yes,
but
he does.
Your art on that book is, and I think this is what I said to you on Twitter, it's my definitive Captain Marvel art, because literally it is, I think there's such a tangible CC Beck influence, which is so ingrained in that character. And like it's your transformations that you do. There's within the first couple issues, obviously the first issue, there's a flying sequence. And I just remember watching that. Everyone on that issue is firing on all cylinders. It's just the color palette is absolutely perfect. Obviously I think your art's wonderful. The inking on top of your art is just like chef's kiss. So I want you to know that for me, like this is a character that's had a complicated history of writers and what DC is going to do with it. But I think your run is the definitive run. And I think that book wouldn't be what it is without your contribution. So I'm a huge fan.
Well, you're very, very sweet, but what's coming up is that, Mark Wade's going to be writing and Dan Mora is going to be doing the artwork for.
I know DC. It.
And it looks, for just the stuff I have, I have no insight other than what I've seen online, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah. There's a color there, there's a costume that he's wearing that's not the costume he's been wearing, and that gets me so excited because I'm much more of a Captain Marvel than a Shazam guy. But I love the new 50, like Gary Frank on that book, too, and Jeff Johns' run was wonderful. But there's something about like you leaned into, like, to your point, the old timiness of some of the classic golden age of it all within your run. That was so good. So I'm a huge fan, and it's crazy to see how you guys were drawing Black Adam and to what he's looking like now. I think is so funny.
Well, in some ways, he's kind of eclipsed Captain Marvel in the DC universe. They're always looking for a all-powerful villain, and it's interesting how the Black Adam's become that.
Yeah, especially, I don't know if you read Dark Crisis, especially with everything he was up to in Dark Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel about Captain Marvel before that? Did you like love his stories? Were you reading, like, there's the Say My Name, there's the Shazam series where CC Beck did the art. Were you reading those or no?
I was aware of it. I was a huge Superman guy. I still am a huge Superman guy. I got to do, 4 Superman fill-ins.
Yeah.
And Superman is the DC character as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But certainly, yeah, you couldn't be a comic book geek without realizing what Shazam or Captain Marvel
Yeah. Yeah.
is to the history of comics. That's a character that's was at one time was the most popular of the superhero comics.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's getting the assignment was a bit daunting. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I believe it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Also, I wrote in my notes, I have a request of you is to please, I need your Captain Marvel with Mark Waid's writing. Just that's a person. I'm asking a personal favor. Okay, that is because I know you guys know. I know you've collaborated before. All right, because I know you're familiar. That would be the best take. I'm just gonna say that.
That would be very interesting. I think they've got a pretty talented guy.
Oh, Dan Moore's
working
amazing
on the book right now. So I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed with the artwork.
I believe it. But if he needs an annual done, I just want you to put your hat in the ring. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. But,
it's been many, many years since I've worked for DC. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, okay. Mark Waid, great transition. My favorite writer. Everything he does. And especially because I think actually what you're saying is his favorite character is also Superman. And I think that
yes, it is.
Tonally, you can see that that influence in both of your guys' work. So sliding into Irredeemable, what was the collaboration like on a project like that, where you're taking these themes and you're building them from the ground up?
Wow. I just reread the book just because, somewhere in the next year, if everything aligns, we're doing a mini series.
Oh, wow.
For Boom with the Irredeemable characters. That was announced during the Kickstarter.
Oh, yes.
So I'm not,
I didn't scoop anyone.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not spilling any beans that aren't already been spilled. So just to reacquaint myself with things, and I just go reading that. Wow, we introduced a ton of content, a bunch of characters, some really classic bits that Mark provided for us to draw. It's really jam-packed, and to try to even as a creator on the book, even to try to wrap my head around it now is tough. I was just talking to somebody about reading the Silmarillion by Tolkien and how you had to keep on looking at the footnotes and everything. And I think that when we do the miniseries, I'm going to have that complete Irredeemable right by my drawing space, just to go back and go, oh yeah, that's that alien character that we introduced here, and oh yeah, that's who she was. And and when you're working on a monthly book, it's just like breakneck pace. You're kind of designing as you go along. It's so it was it was a lot of stuff, a lot of work. But I'm looking forward to working with Mark again.
Is it which do you prefer? Is it building the universe from scratch, or do you think having the foundation of for something like Power of Shazam? We all have a idea of what those characters are going to look like. You have reference. With something like Irredeemable, do you prefer making it all up, or his costumes or all those characters' looks? Which do you prefer? Or which one's maybe, obviously I think one's maybe harder than the other, but
I think they both have some sort of appeal, and I think you're right. Doing the stuff from scratch, certainly there's satisfaction in doing that. Knowing you're really owning the character. Nobody's going to compare your artwork to someone who went before, and just by definition, you're doing the definitive take on the character.
Yeah.
But not to say that, but like when I was working on Power Shazam, Jerry provided such a good visual template in the graphic novel.
Yeah.
That it was really fun to riff off of that. I love doing, like the Art Deco architecture that Jerry had, kind of defined.
Yeah.
Fawcett as being, a city that was in some ways, at least visually, stuck in that era.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. I, pulling out the Art Deco books and, I think, in fact, I probably still have it around here someplace. Mike Carlin gave me, who was our editor on the series, gave me a book and signed it and said, here's, something to start on as far as Art Deco reference.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's amazing. It's cool to hear that, I love that, the city can be a character as well. And I think that's something that hopefully we're leaning into, it's not something I've understood before, but I think everyone knows, Metropolis needs a globe on top of the Daily Planet, right? And so tonally things like that. So I'm glad to hear I think Fawcett did have that in your story. So also, now that I was thinking about Irredeemable as you were talking, and a page got stuck in my mind. It's in the first volume, and it's when you find out the Plutonian has gone to the moon just for some peace and quiet. There is no text on that page. That is all you. And I wanted to say that was like one of my favorite pages of all time. So
wow. That's very sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just gonna gush my compliments all over you because I have your attention. I have a captive audience right now. So that's awesome. Okay. And then one of my last question is really, you also do work in storyboarding, which I think is so interesting.
Yeah.
How does that compare to comics? Does the comics influence going into storyboarding, or did the style of storyboarding influence the comics? Like or are they just completely different? How does that work?
I don't do a whole lot anymore. But it was because I did comics that I got in the door to do advertising storyboards. And it goes to show you just don't know where these connections are going to come. Yeah. I was coaching my middle son in t-ball and struck up a conversation with one of the other parents, one of the dads who had a kid on the team. And he found out I drew comics. And he goes, comics? He goes, that's kind of like storyboarding. He goes, I work at a production house. I'm a director. Occasionally we need somebody to draw storyboards. Would you be interested? And I said, sure, why not?
That's so cool.
And, so for a period of time there, basically from the early 2000s until, we started doing Irredeemable, I was primarily, working in advertising storyboards at that time. But I still had to scratch the itch for comics. I felt like I hadn't quite refined my drawing and hadn't quite accomplished everything that I wanted to. So Irredeemable came around basically because I had done a short story with Derek McCulloch, I believe was the writer for Image Popgun Anthology. And at the time, Boom had an open forum where you could post drawings, comic book work. I just posted some of the stuff from there. And I actually got contacted from Boom about doing Irredeemable. Yeah. And so that led to me doing the book.
Was it ever hard? Because there's tonally, obviously it's reverse Superman, right. and not in the way of like he's evil Superman, because there's so many other factors in that story that influence. Like for me, the one that sticks out in my brain is as soon as I forget his romance, his Lois Lane equivalent in the story, but when she finds out who he is, she tries to scoop the story and tries to run and reveal his secret identity, and he has a freak out.
She's upset. I mean, he kept that from her. He wasn't being honest. With her. a perfectly human,
Absolutely.
uh,
But
result of things. It's not going to be all hunky dory like
of course.
it might be in Metropolis.
Yeah.
Clark taking his shirt off and showing Lois the S, and everything's happy ever after.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark. I think Mark had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Perverting these Superman expectations, and he loves the character like I do.
Of course. Yeah, you guys. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I had to, was that ever a challenge? Was that like, no, but it sounds like it was fun. Because also like I think that's one of the biggest strengths of indie comics is that you can, or even if Boom is even considered indie anymore, because I think Boom and Image are the two titans in the industry now.
Sure.
But I think that's the fun is like you can take tropes that and subvert them in a story that neither of those places could, or Marvel or DC could ever tell. And so it's so cool. And especially like, the power that's having in other medias, with The Boys, obviously, but also Irredeemable is getting your guys' volumes sell out so quick. The first omnibus that I had to swipe it off before it was the last one on the shelf at the comic shop I went to.
I will say that it's very nice getting those quarterly checks.
Good. You've earned them. It's awesome. Okay, last question I have for you, because you've been so kind with your time. If you have the time to read your pull list, what is your favorite series in your pull list right now?
I will buy, first, Saga is great. I will buy anything that Brubaker and Phillips put out.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a big fan of Sean's work and Ed's writing.
Yeah.
They never miss for me. I'm a big Hellboy fan.
Mm-hmm.
Jimbo Yasagi is great.
Oh, great.
Stan Sakai is a master.
Oh man.
And what else? The Good Asian. Fantastic. I loved it. I sat down and read those volumes, and wow, it was so good. And I'm probably missing some other ones, but those are the ones that come to mind right off the top of my head.
Oh man, what's so funny is the ongoing one. And when I talked to Mark Russell, and it's been a common theme with a lot of people that I talk to, is that Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker, they're not, I love those guys. Like everything they put out, I'm buying and reading because they're just that good. But every comic writer is just in love with them. And I love that, because after I read Bad Weekend, that changed how I thought about the industry, because it was that. And especially I think Sean Phillips, obviously amazing art, but Jacob's colors over Sean's art.
Yes, I've got to meet both of them because I did go to Thought Bubble last year, and Jacob did some. We did a Kickstarter. The crime graphic novel Blacking Out. Chip Mosher, my friend Chip Mosher, who used to be head of Comixology Originals.
Oh, okay.
Chip wrote the story. We did a Kickstarter. Some of the ancillary artwork we had. If you pledge at a certain level, you got what we called lobby cards. We had Jacob do a lot of the coloring on that.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, Jacob is. I haven't read Texas Blood yet.
Yeah.
I know I have to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Jacob, if you do listen to this. I do have to catch up on that. But Jacob is fantastic, and we had a couple of conversations on Twitter. I said, do you even flat your colors? I said, I really like the way you're doing your coloring.
Yeah. Where
you're it seems so free. And I said, if I do some more coloring on interior work, I'm going to copy what you're doing. I hope you're all right with that.
Yeah. Oh, he's and it's really fun to talk to Lee about Jacob's coloring, and especially even now his art. I'm so glad to see he's working with Chip Zdarsky because he's
Yeah.
New Burn. That's another one I'm actually going to read when it's collected. I read the first issue and it was awesome, and so it's like tonally the hard boiled stuff is my absolute favorite. So
Yeah, I love that stuff. I love to draw that stuff.
oh great.
It's a lot of fun. So I'm actually on the side right now. I finished all the artwork on the Ahoy series.
My Bad.
That Mark Russell and Bryce Ingman have written, and now I'm working on another story with Chip Mosher, and
Oh wow, awesome.
this is another crime type thing. It's pretty dark.
Oh well, when I'm gonna go read My Bad and Metropolis SCU, and then I'll go when that's coming out. I'd love to have you back because I just want to pick your brain more and more. Next con I know that you're at, I'm gonna save up some money to get a Captain Marvel commission. That's a bucket list item for me because I think they're amazing. So thank you so much, Peter, for coming on the podcast. Let me talk your ear off about your amazing body of work. Please let our audience know where they can find you on social media so that they can see what you're posting and everything.
Yeah, I'm only active on Twitter. I do have a Hive account, but no Facebook. But you can find me on Twitter, and my handle is Peter G Krause, middle initial G.
Great.
So that's where I occasionally post stuff that I'm working on.
Yeah,
and there might be a few political things on there as well.
You know what? That's what it's for. So that's what we have your, that's your platform. So you can do what as you please with it. But thank you so much for coming on the Cam Reads Comics. Hey, everyone listening, please sure to clobber those like and subscribe buttons and leave a 5-star rating and review so other people can find the podcast. We will see you later.